Hello and welcome. Today I have a whole bunch of book recommendations to share with you. And the idea is if you liked certain books in your childhood, then I have adult books to recommend to you. So we've got our similar character styles, similar settings, similar plot, similar vibe, aesthetic. They just align and have connections. So I've chosen 10 books from our youthhood, our childhood, and if you're here watching this video, I have a feeling that you will agree that these are also books that you enjoyed. And then I am going to pair adult recommendations with those books. So get something to drink, get settled in. I will try to link everything below so you don't have to take notes. You can just watch and listen and see if any of these pique your interest. The first recommendation that I'm going to just kick right off with is if you enjoyed the Little House on the Prairie series by Laura Ingalls Wilder or Caddy Woodlawn by Carol Ryrie Brink, those two series, then I would suggest These Is My Words by Nancy E. Turner. In this, we follow Sarah Agnes Prime, and this is from 1881 to 1901, and we have a timeline of a girl who is traveling with her family in the Arizona territories. It's basically like a grown-up or more adult version of Laura Ingalls Wilder. And we have some dangerous situations involving men and our main character. There are definitely situations with the Native Americans that's in this book. We also have potential love interest. There is definitely a harshness of the land and the territory and traveling that's in this. So it is definitely much heavier topics. It certainly is not light like the two children's books, but it has that similar vibe, and also I do think the character is plucky and inventive and creative and determined, much like the characters in our children's version. So that is These Is My Words by Nancy Turner. I thought about doing like themes as far as like the categories of books, but I think I'm just going to jump around. So the next book that I have is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. If you enjoyed Little Women, I actually have two recommendations for you. So the first one is The Lost Summer of Louisa May Alcott. While Louisa May Alcott is actually a young adult in this book, I do think that there are very heavy themes in this, and I think it is a perfect adult choice. This is based on a lot of research that Kelly McNeese did as far as learning about Louisa May Alcott. She discovered a sort of lost summer when the Alcott family moved to Wapple, New Hampshire, and there's not a lot of information about that time. And so our author kind of imagined through all of her research of Louisa May Alcott and later on in her life and her childhood, kind of imagined what that summer would look like. This is a Louisa May Alcott, a little bit of what we are familiar with, where she is very determined and prides herself on her independence. But there are also some personality traits that, sort of indicate a normal, flawed human, which is a little bit of pettiness and judgment and being stubborn. But it also has romance. And I think there's been a lot of supposition around Louisa May Alcott and romance with the way she had Joe and Laurie kind of set up, and also within her own life, kind of what that looked like. And so the author did take some liberties into bringing in a little bit of romance in this summer. So depending on your perception of Louisa May Alcott and how much you want to stick to what is known about her versus a more creative perspective on her, this may not be for you, but I actually really enjoyed it, and I think if you like Little Women, you will enjoy this book as well. Another book to try if you enjoyed Little Women is Marmee by Sarah Miller. This takes the Little Women story and gives it to us from the perspective of Marmee. This, again, has much heavier themes. There are some very sad explorations of child loss, so that absolutely is a content warning for anyone for whom that is a trigger. But I did really enjoy reading about the same kind of timeline as is in Little Women from the mother's perspective, right? As an older woman, as a mother, I just could relate to it and understand it. And there were aspects to this as well of like when Marmee goes to stay with the father as he is recuperating. We lose that thread in the book. There's really not a lot about it. And there was so much in Marmee that kind of explained some things a little bit better. So I really enjoyed that aspect as well. So if you like Little Women, then I would suggest trying Marmee or The Lost Summer of Louisa May Alcott. Next, I have the Boxcar Children. This is by Gertrude Chandler Warner. She wrote the first, I believe, 19 books in this series. This series is a staple in our house. My kids learned to read on it. I grew up reading it. The idea of children kind of being wild and free and living in a boxcar and finding little broken bits of porcelain and, a fork and whatever, and using that to build a home while also living in a boxcar, just as a child, just seemed idyllic. So, but if you loved the Boxcar Children, then the adult recommendation that I have for you is Jenny Colgan's The Bookshop on the Shore. This is actually the second book in this bookshop series. She started, I think, with The Bookshop in the Corner, but Jenny Colgan writes little notes in the beginnings of her books directly to her readers, and it says in there that this is not a sequel, and I actually have not read The Bookshop in the Corner. I have only read The Bookshop on the Shore and did not feel like I was missing anything. So in this, we have Zoe. She is a single mother. She is escaping London and all of its just really awful things that happened to Zoe there. And she ends up in Scotland with a job in basically a mobile bookshop van off of or near Loch Ness. So she's in the Scottish Highlands and she's got this mobile book van, which is connection with the Boxcar Children, because she does kind of live this little bit of, she's moving around a lot in order to offer her books. This, again, has very heavy themes in it. I mean, Boxcar Children a little bit does. I mean, these poor kids were abandoned. But anyway, Zoe, as a single mother, has a lot of baggage. There are people there who are dealing with PTSD. We get to know the village and all of their problems. So lots of heavy adult problems in this. Jenny Colgan, I think, is a pretty easy modern writer to read, but her books do a lot of times have, a little bit of open door romance as well as a little bit of swearing. But other than that, the heaviest thing that makes this adult is the trauma that all these broken people are walking around with. Because we've got a bookseller, we also have a lot of literary references, and so that just feels very comfortable too. So if you like the idea of living mobily and kind of picking up and ending up somewhere, finding things around you to make that and build that into a home, then I would suggest trying Bookshop on the Shore by Jenny Colgan. Next, I am going to share comparable books to The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. So many of us growing up loved The Secret Garden, and I have two to share with you. So the first one, if you've been here for any length of time, will not be a surprise to you, and that is The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. We just read this in May as part of the Mayflowers read-along and really loved it. This has little Easter egg nods to The Secret Garden. It's obviously called The Forgotten Garden, and there's a whole explanation behind why that is and maybe kind of how it is connected to The Secret Garden. Frances Hodgson Burnett actually does make a cameo in this story. So Kate Morton is Australian, and so this book originally is set at the beginning in Australia. We have a young girl who, at a very young age, ends up alone on a ship from England. No one knows where she came from. No one knows why. She gets adopted and isn't told that she's adopted until she becomes a young adult. And then we go from there on trying to unravel her history. We have 3 timelines and 3 main points of view. And this is just fantastic. It actually, for as thick as it is, it goes by so fast. I loved reading it with so many of you, but if you were not able to join us or you're just now finding my channel, The Forgotten Garden is a perfect follow along if you loved The Secret Garden. The second one that I wanted to mention is Garden Spells. This is by Sarah Addison Allen. I love Sarah Addison Allen. I believe she has a book that is coming out, Paper Ghosts, that coming out this fall that I'm hoping to read. She writes a lot of magical realism, but again, does not shy away from very heavy topics. And the Garden Spells, don't be fooled by this beautiful, lovely, whimsical cover, or even the connection to Secret Garden, although there are some heavy topics in there. This does deal with physical abuse and abusive relationships and all that kind of comes along with that. I really love Sarah Addison Allen's writing. She does such a great job with family dynamics, both, kind of this thing where you're like sniping at each other, but you have got each other's back. That is what Garden Spells is. It's about sisters. It's about a townspeople and your kind of love for home. We've got a little bit of whimsy baked into goods and just a little bit of magical realism sprinkled through. Just a really fantastic story. It's actually the first book in a duology. And this would be the perfect time to pick this up as it's summer. So Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen and The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton, if you want something that is comparable to The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Next, I have a comparable title for our lovely Anne with an E, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. If you love Anne of Green Gables, then I would suggest to you, let me find a light-colored one, The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower. This really has become a BookTube, Bookstagram darling. If you haven't started the Emma M. Lyon series and you loved Anne of Green Gables, then this is the series for you. We have two characters who are left alone in the world as orphans, who really rely upon found family and also dealing with bullies in some ways. We have different love interests that arrive. We have this lovely little town. We have Lapis Lazuli, which is very much like Green Gables as far as like how a house can really feel like a refuge for the most part. Emma M. Lyon herself is a very plucky, determined, faithful character and just so connected to Anne of Green Gables. So I could gush on and on about Emma M. Lyon and about how great this series is. I do have one caveat warning, which is this is an unfinished series. We are waiting for book 9 and have been for quite a while. And Beth Brower has told us that she expects this series to be quite long, over double of the 8 that we already have. And so with the long wait to get to even to book 9, we could be waiting a very long time before this series is finished. So you start it at your own peril knowing that. Next, I have a recommendation. If you love Trixie Belden by Julie Campbell, then I would suggest trying the Lady Hardcastle mystery series by T.E. Kinsey. Lady Hardcastle herself just feels like a grown-up Trixie Belden to me. She is tough as nails. There's obviously been a period of time between her youthhood and then where she is now because she is significantly older. And there's all kinds of things where you are not sure, she must have been a spy in foreign countries and learned all kinds of these fighting techniques. I mean, it just feels like this is Trixie Belden having had a fantastic life, continuing on in training herself to solve mysteries, and now we've ended up at Lady Hardcastle. She has a trusty sidekick, Flo, so not really the Bob White Club, but Flo and Lady Hardcastle could be part of a club, I think. They are this amazing duo at solving mysteries, much like Trixie Belden. So this is the first book in the series. I have continued on in this series and have loved it very much. So if you love Trixie Belden, her quirky personality, the ability to kind of relate to her, then I would suggest trying a Lady Hardcastle mystery. And if nothing else, I just think both of these have these stunning covers. So that's a great connection as well. Okay, next If you liked the Sweet Valley Twins or Sweet Valley High series that were created by Francine Pascal, then the book that I have to recommend is Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. This is very much an adult book. We have two characters in this who are not twins, like in Sweet Valley Twins, or even biological sisters, but they are as close as two girls can be. They both have very different lives. Tully is the daughter of an absentee father, and her mother was a drug addict. Kate has this very traditional family, however. After growing up together, they both kind of go with separate ways, where Tully becomes a famous journalist and Kate becomes a stay-at-home mom. There is something that happens between the two of them that creates a huge rift. The only thing that can bring them back together is this tragic situation. This is very heavy in its themes, as far as like families and your family of origin and how that can impact you as a child and even in your relationships. But it also deals with terminal illness and the pain of that. And so this is a book that is very sad. It will most likely make you cry. But if you are interested in a book that really feels like two sisters and just, the squabbles that can happen, what can happen if you don't make up, if you decide that whatever this person has done to you is painful enough that you've got to cut them out of your life. And then the ramifications of that as time marches on, then Firefly Lane is an option for you to pick up. Next, I have The Babysitter's Club. This is by Anne Martin. I read so many of these growing up. I passed on my books to my daughter to read. This is the story of four young girls who, and it morphed into more than four, but who created a babysitting club. I went with the club idea for comparables, and the first one is the Friday Night Knitting Club. So just as with the Firefly Lane, this one does have a very sad situation that happens at the end of it. Very sad. So if you try to avoid books where your throat wells up and you've got tears and you're just possibly even sobbing, then I have another recommendation coming up, and the Friday Night Knitting Club might not be for you. But this is about women who share a common interest, who create a club, and it's about motherhood and about friendship and obviously about knitters. So again, very heavy topics in here, but very much a women supporting women through really painful situations. So that's the Friday Night Knitting Club. Another book, though, that I think is more literary than the Friday Night Knitting Club, and that is the Jane Austen Book Club. So again, we've got marital issues and just normal life struggles that are happening to the five women who are part of this club, but it is all sort of wrapped up in this Jane Austen veil where there are references to her books, and it's all connected with Jane Austen's writing as they are reading through her books. They're doing life together. Again, lots of pain in this, but it does feel a little bit more literary, and it didn't leave me feeling as sad as the Friday Night Knitting Club did. I grew up loving The Witch of Blackbird Pond. This is by Elizabeth George Spear. I had both my kids read this book. I love The Witch of Blackbird Pond. So, a comparison for this is Circe by Madeline Miller. So, obviously, Circe is the retelling of Circe in the Odyssey. So, we have Odysseus, we have I think what I would consider like false accusations, similarly as in The Witch of Blackbird Pond. But this is the result of women with very strong personalities and very strong ideas of what is right, what is wrong, what they need to do in order to survive, and the consequences and ramifications on them because of that. Circe does have open door romance, and there are some, slightly violent parts to this, but it is I feel like enthralling, and I loved getting a perspective on this whole part of the story from her. So I really enjoyed Circe. I really need to read Song of Achilles as well, but I think if you loved The Witch of Blackbird Pond, I think you should give Circe a try. And then lastly, I have The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants by Anne Brashares. If you enjoyed that, then I would suggest trying The Divine Secrets of Yaya Sisterhood by Rebecca Wells. So, to be frank, it has been a long time since I read either of these books. So when I think back on them, I really think about the movie. And I kind of feel like I want to watch both movies at this point. But Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants is this, and again, I really liked the movie. So if you're kind of in the mood for a summer movie, don't really feel like reading the actual YA book, then just watch the movie. But in this, we have 4 friends who are going to be spending the summer separately, and they, as like this, way, because they're so sad to be leaving each other, they're going to share a pair of pants and mail it. And we follow the pants along as each of the girls kind of grow and change, coming of age during the summer. It's really fun, such a great idea. It's a huge series. I've only read and seen the first movie, but really enjoyed it. I think it's so cute. If you liked this idea of like this core girls friendship that then is like grown up, then we have The Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. This is much more gritty. I mean, they're like blood sisters. They go through this whole night where they, decide, okay, we're going to be connected by blood from now on. So much of this is formed by my recollection of the movie, but we have one of the sisterhood who is going through this like sort of public embarrassing situation. This is a lot about mother-daughter dysfunctional relationships where the mother's just very critical and the daughter's like, I'm going to do whatever. And then you have a sisterhood of women who come and circle around you when you are going through a rough time. So we're learning about secrets from the past and how that's been affected and brought into the future. But if this idea of sisterhood and connection and friendships and having, your people to lean on when you go through hardships, then either of these are really great movie choices. But if you want a more adult version of that, then it's Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood. Well, that wasn't easy. But here is the stack of books that we just went through. So let me know of what I shared. What do you think that you might want to pick up next? I would love to hear also why that is, kind of what resonated with you. And if you have any comparisons to share of if you liked this in your childhood, then we should try an adult version of that, then please feel free to leave that below. I am always looking for books that kind of feel nostalgic, but also obviously have growth and change. So, as always, you guys, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.